People always say strange lights in a field must be satellites, drones, maybe even swamp gas. They always have an answer, but what I saw wasn't in the sky. It was already here, on the ground, and it moved like it was looking for something. This happened last fall, early September. Nights were still warm, but the fields had that end-of-season dryness. I live just outside Chillicothe, Ohio. Flat country, lots of space between houses. My land backs up into old hayfields and what used to be soybean rows back in my father's time. First time I saw the light, it was 3:16 in the morning. I remember the time because I checked the clock. The dogs had started pacing, not barking, just moving, whining, tails down. I looked out the back window, and there it was. A pale white circle floating just above the ground, maybe 30 yards out into the field. No sound, no flicker. It didn't glow like a flashlight. It just existed, like it had been there the whole time, and I'd only just noticed it. I stared at it for a while, trying to make sense of the angle. Thought maybe someone left a vehicle with lights on, but there was no vehicle, just light. I stepped outside with a flashlight, and by the time I hit the edge of the porch, it was gone. No trace, no tire tracks. Just that weird silence after something unnatural disappears. I told myself it was nothing. Just tired eyes, maybe a passing truck's high beams hitting the mist. But the next night, same time, same place, the light came back. My life out here is simple, always has been. I inherited the land when my father passed, kept things running the way he did. Quiet, consistent, enough to pay the taxes and keep the water running. I cut hay for neighbors, mend fences when they ask, and take care of a few animals, mostly for company. I'm not a recluse, not exactly. I go into town when I need to, but most days it's just me in the fields. That time of year, everything starts to settle. The cicadas get quiet. The soil dries up and breaks in long lines. I know the sound of this place. Every shift in the wind, every loose shutter, every rustle of grass when a deer steps wrong. I know what the field looks like when it's full of fog, when it's frozen, when it's been flattened by storms. That's why it stuck with me, how still the field was that night. The second time I saw the light, it was hovering in the exact same place. This time, I didn't move. I stayed inside, watched it through the screen door for over 6 minutes. It never flickered, never rose or dipped, just held there, maybe 3 feet off the ground, like it was thinking. When it vanished, it didn't fade or blink out. It just wasn't there anymore, like it had never been. The next morning, I walked out into the field. No burn marks, no signs of heat, nothing disturbed, not even the grass, but the dogs refused to cross the fence line, just stood at the edge, pacing, whining again. The third night, it came back, same time, but this time, it moved. The third night, the light didn't stay still. At first, it appeared in the usual spot. Same pale glow, same dead stillness all around it. But after a minute or two, it began to drift sideways. Not fast, not jerky, just smooth, low to the ground, skimming the tops of the hay like it was searching for something. I stood inside the mudroom, lights off, just watching. The movement was wrong, not in a technical way, just in a natural way, like it wasn't bound by terrain. Didn't care about dips in the soil or fence lines. It passed over a section I knew had a rusted-out wire gate, and it didn't hesitate. It just slid through, silent, weightless. I tried to film it with my phone. The screen stayed black. Camera app froze. I restarted it 3 times. Same result. But the moment I turned away, I saw the glow flash, just once, closer this time. Maybe 50 feet from the back edge of the barn. The dogs were already inside by then. They wouldn't go near the windows, wouldn't bark either, just stood by the basement door watching me. Next morning I walked out again. Still no tracks, but the smell was different, damp like overturned earth. There was a faint metallic tang in the air, something sharp at the back of the throat, like hot wires or old blood. By the 5th night, I stopped sleeping. I stayed on the porch with a thermos of coffee and my father's old rifle across my lap. At exactly 3:16, the light appeared again, and this time, it crossed the fence line. That night, it rained. Not heavy, just enough to make the wood groan and the screens rattle. I sat out on the porch again, wrapped in a blanket, coffee gone cold. The rifle sat across my lap, but I wasn't sure what I'd do with it if the time came. What do you shoot at when there's nothing solid to aim for? At 3:14, I felt it before I saw it, the pressure shift in the air, like the barn and the trees had suddenly gone hollow. Then the light came. Not in the usual place, not in the field. It appeared just beyond the fence, inside the perimeter. It hovered between two fence posts. Rain slid through it, didn't scatter. It didn't cast a beam or shadows, it just glowed, like it belonged to a different part of the world entirely. Then it moved again, toward the barn. Slow, intentional. It didn't float randomly. It navigated, like it knew where to go. I got up and stepped inside, pulling the porch door shut. I didn't run. I didn't lock anything. I just stood in the kitchen, lights off, listening. When it reached the side of the barn, something changed. The little emergency radio I kept near the sink turned itself on. No volume at first, just static. Then a sound started to rise behind the fuzz. A voice, low, distorted, garbled like an old cassette tape played too slow. It was my voice. A recording from the night before. I recognized the words. It's probably just headlights. Someone lost down the ridge. Then silence. I opened the door and stepped out. The rain had stopped. The barn was dark. No lights, no sound. But the porch boards were wet, like something had been standing there facing the house. I didn't call anyone, didn't report it. Who would I call? The sheriff's a good man, but he's got enough real trouble on his plate. And I didn't have evidence, just stories, just silence and memory. A week later, I put part of the field up for sale. Some couple from Cincinnati bought the southern tract, said they were looking to get away from everything. I didn't warn them. Didn't feel like my place. Besides, whatever this is, it doesn't follow fences. I moved my bedroom upstairs and put blackout film on the back windows, stopped leaving the porch light on. I still have the rifle, but I don't sit on the porch with it anymore. The dogs eventually calm down, but they still avoid the back door, still whimper on some nights around 3 a.m., even if nothing shows up. And sometimes, when I can't sleep, I turn on the radio just to check. I listen to the static, wait to see if it knows my voice again. A friend of my father's stopped by recently, said he heard something on 7:31 a.m. that reminded him of an old story. Two brothers disappeared from a farm about 8 miles from here, back in '62. Said the last thing one of them ever said on the radio was, "There's lights in the field, coming closer." I still live here, still own that field, and most nights it's just a field, but sometimes I think I'm the one being studied now. I know what my voice sounds like. I've heard it on voicemails, old cassette tapes, cheap laptop mics. I know its tone, the rhythm, the way I pause mid-sentence when I'm thinking. That's why, when I heard it coming through my grandfather's old radio at 3 a.m., I knew something was wrong. Not just strange, wrong. It happened a few months ago when I stayed at the cabin up in Monroe County. My grandfather passed in 2021 and the house had been sitting there since, untouched, unsold, forgotten under a canopy of pine and fog. I was supposed to be there for 3 weeks, sorting through what was left, deciding what to keep and what to haul to auction. It's the kind of place where time stalls. The mailbox rusted shut, the satellite dish sagged, dust thick enough to muffle your own steps. And in the kitchen, above the fridge, tucked under a stack of crossword books, sat his old General Electric radio. Big, brown, with a cracked dial and a plastic knob that clicked when you turned it. The first few days were quiet. Long walks, quiet meals, no cell signal unless I drove 20 minutes uphill. At night I read with a lantern and fell asleep to the sound of trees shifting in the wind. But on the 5th night, I woke up just before 3 a.m. Not to a sound, not at first, just the sense that something was wrong in the house, like a wire left humming. I walked into the kitchen and froze. The radio, unplugged, was on. Static, steady, not loud. Just enough to let me know it had something to say. And buried in the hiss was a voice. My voice, saying something I didn't remember ever saying. I wasn't supposed to stay long. 3 weeks. That was the plan. Go through the house, clear out what was left, maybe patch up the porch before listing it. My grandfather's cabin sat a mile off the county road, surrounded by trees that leaned too close and a gravel path nobody had driven in months. No neighbors, no cell towers, no reason to think I'd be disturbed. I brought books, some tools, a sleeping bag, and a cooler. No internet, no TV. I wanted the quiet. The cabin had no central heat, just an old wood stove that still worked if you knew how to coax it. There were 3 rooms, a small bedroom, a living space, and the kitchen. Everything else was wood and dust and the smell of old paper, the kind of house where even silence has a shape. During the day I worked through boxes, tools, tax papers, letters he never sent. Every object had weight, memory. Some nights I'd find myself holding something simple, a tin coffee cup, a flannel shirt, and just staring at it. There was comfort in the routine. I woke with the sun, fixed whatever was broken, cooked quietly. By the 5th night, I'd started to enjoy the stillness. The radio was just part of the background. I didn't touch it at first. It looked dead, the cord frayed, the back panel missing, the antenna bent at a wrong angle. I left it where it sat like some relic that belonged to the room more than to me. And then came that first night, the soft click, the low hiss. I stood in the kitchen for almost a full minute, staring at the speaker, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. But when I reached for the dial, the voice came through again. After the first time, I left the radio unplugged, just to be sure. Even though it had turned on without power, I needed to prove to myself it was some weird leftover current. Maybe a battery I missed, maybe something explainable. But it stayed silent for 3 nights. Then just when I started to feel silly about the whole thing, it came back on. Same time. 2:58 a.m. This time it didn't start with static. It skipped right to a broadcast, or what sounded like one, a soft hum, almost like a field recording, wind through trees, a creek running, faint animal sounds. Then the noise cut, dead silence for 5 full seconds, and then laughter. Not a laugh track, not a recording. Just one voice, close to the mic, laughing low like it had just remembered something. It was my laugh, exactly mine. Same rhythm, same breath at the end. But I hadn't laughed all week. I stood in the dark, barefoot on the kitchen tile, and waited to hear more. The radio hissed again, then another sound, softer, like breathing through a cloth. I recorded it on my phone. When I checked the file in the morning, it was gone. Not corrupted, gone. The next night I unplugged the radio and locked it in the cabinet under the sink. At 2:58 a.m. I woke up again. The sound wasn't coming from the kitchen this time. It was coming from my bedroom. I followed it, slow, careful, until I found the source. The audio was playing through the power outlet in the wall, like the house itself had become a speaker, and the voice it used was still mine. I didn't sleep after that. I left the light on, kept the phone charging by the bed, made sure the radio was locked up, disconnected, buried under pans and blankets. Still, at 2:58, like clockwork, I woke up. Sometimes to silence, sometimes to that faint electrical pressure in the air, like the house itself was listening. The voice didn't always speak. Sometimes it just replayed. One night I heard it say something I'd whispered days earlier while cleaning out a box of my grandfather's tools. This doesn't belong to me. Only I hadn't said it out loud. I'd thought it. That was the night I started unplugging the power main before bed, but none of it made a difference. Then came the last night. Rain was coming down hard, and I was already up, heart racing before I even opened my eyes. This time the voice didn't come from the kitchen, or the wall, or the radio. It came from everywhere, low, quiet, right behind my ears. and it said, "Don't answer the door, not this time." That's when I realized I was already standing up, half asleep, halfway down the hall, moving toward the front door like something had pulled me there. And then, the knock, 3 times, slow, hollow, like knuckles on soft wood. I stood frozen. The voice whispered again. Same tone, same pace, still mine. "Don't open it, it's already inside." I turned. The hallway behind me was empty, but I swear, I felt something brush past me on its way out. I left the cabin 2 days later, didn't bother finishing the clean-out, took what I could fit in the truck and didn't look back. Left the rest to rot. The tools, the shelves, the old photographs, and that damn radio. I didn't sell the place. Something told me not to. The voice didn't come back after that night. The knocking stopped. The static, the strange pulses through the walls, gone. For a while I convinced myself I was just overtired, grieving. Maybe the isolation had gotten to me. But then I started recording myself at night, just in case. And once, only once, I caught something. A whisper at 3:01 a.m. right after a long stretch of silence. It was my voice. Not sleep talk, not mumbling. Clear, controlled. "I told you not to answer. Why didn't you listen?" I deleted the file. I couldn't bring myself to listen again. Now I sleep with noise machines on, music playing, anything to cover silence. Because silence is what it waits for. And some nights, I still hear the radio click on. Not in the house, not in this city, but somewhere behind the noise. Like a frequency only I can catch. And when it comes through, it knows my name. The silo was supposed to be empty. It had been sealed for years, rusted shut, no ladder inside, no reason for anyone to be in there. That's what made the sound so hard to ignore. Not the volume, the rhythm. Like it knew I was listening. The first time I heard it, I was out feeding the dogs just before dawn. No wind, just cold air, a pale sky, and the usual creaks of old wood settling behind me. But this was different. It came from the far side of the barn. A low, heavy thud. 3 slow hits against metal. Then silence. Then 2 more. Quicker this time. Like someone testing, waiting to see if I'd notice. I stood there for a long minute, thinking it must have been something natural. A branch, maybe. Temperature shift. Animals messing around. But I couldn't shake the feeling it was timed. That's what got me. It didn't feel like a random sound. It felt like a message. I walked around the barn, flashlight in hand, boots sinking into soft soil. When I reached the silo, everything looked the same. Door chained, hinges rusted stiff, grass undisturbed, no signs of entry. Nothing moved. But when I turned to walk back to the house, I heard it again. 3 knocks, closer this time. Like it had waited for me to walk away, just so I'd hear it again. I've lived on this land since '96. Bought it from my uncle after he moved down to Texas, and never had a reason to leave. My wife passed in 2018, and the kids are long grown, scattered across 3 states and barely call. It's just me out here now, and honestly, I prefer it that way. My days follow a pattern. Up before the sun, feed the dogs, check the perimeter, drink my coffee out on the porch. After that, it's repairs, livestock, whatever the land decides needs doing. The evenings are quiet. I cook, read, sometimes fall asleep with the stove still burning. There's no internet out here, and the radio's more static than signal, but I don't mind. The silo sits behind the barn, tucked into a corner where the grass grows taller than it should. It's been there since my father's time. Round, steel, sun-bleached to a dull gray. We stopped using it years ago after a bad collapse of the interior chute. It's sealed now. I even had the hatch welded shut in 2009, just to be safe. I walk past it every day. Never thought twice about it. So when I heard that first knock, and then the second, I went back through everything in my head. Could have been raccoons, sure. Maybe deer, but deer don't knock. And they don't wait until just before sunrise. The next morning, I walked around the silo. Looked for prints, found nothing but frost and old leaves. No signs of tampering, no damage, no scent trail for the dogs to pick up. Just silence. But later that night, just as I was closing up the chicken coop, I heard it again. Same pattern. 3, pause, 2. Always at 3:11 a.m. After the third night, I brought a lantern out with me, sat in a folding chair by the barn just far enough to see the silo from the side. The knock came right on time, 3:11, same rhythm, 3, then 2. I stood, stepped closer, and this time, I knocked back. Same pattern, slower, just to see. And about 6 seconds later, the sound returned. Same rhythm, same spacing. Only it came from a little higher up, like it had shifted position inside. That's when I realized it wasn't just repeating me, it was listening. The next night, I changed the knock, did 4 short taps, then 2 fast ones. Nothing at first. I thought maybe I'd broken the pattern, until the echo came back. Exact same sequence, clear as day. I started keeping a log, marking the time, the pattern, the temperature. It didn't matter what I tried. It always replied. No delay, no mistakes, and never any sign that something had physically moved. I walked the perimeter with the dogs. They avoided the silo completely. One of them growled, low and deep, tail down, hackles raised. I'd never seen him do that before. I had to drag him back by the collar. I started sleeping less, drinking more coffee, leaving the porch light on through the night, though it never seemed to help. Once or twice I thought I saw movement on the silo's surface, not shadows, but something like heat shimmer. Subtle, almost like the metal was breathing. One night I stayed up inside, trying to ignore it, but at exactly 3:11 I heard the sound again, this time from the ceiling beams above the kitchen. 3 knocks, pause, 2 more, and then nothing. I couldn't take it anymore. That morning I pulled the bolt cutters from the shed and walked out to the silo. The lock was old, rusted through, barely put up a fight. The door gave with a long metallic groan, and the air that came out smelled wrong, dry but thick, like something had been sealed too long and turned to dust. I brought a lantern and a hammer. The interior was pitch black, no natural light. The main chute had collapsed years back, but a makeshift maintenance ladder still hugged the wall. I hadn't touched it in decades, didn't trust it, but I needed to know. I climbed down slow, each step echoing like a drumbeat. 1, 2, 3. I stopped. Halfway down, my phone buzzed in my pocket. No signal, no alert, just a soft vibration. I reached for it and saw a new audio file appear on the screen. Rec 311 WAV. I didn't press play. I didn't need to. I could already hear it, my own breathing, my footsteps, my knock pattern, the one from 2 nights ago. And then, toward the end of the file, a new sound. A breath that wasn't mine. Low, wet, right next to the microphone, like someone, or something, was standing inches from the speaker. I climbed back up fast, hands shaking, every creak of the ladder louder than the last. When I reached the top, I slammed the door shut and shoved the broken lock back into place, just for show. Then, 3 knocks from inside the silo, followed by 2 more. Slower this time, measured, almost gentle. I sealed the silo the next morning, took the torch, welded the hatch closed, bolted a steel plate over the seam, stacked concrete blocks in front just for good measure. Didn't sleep after that, didn't eat much either. I just kept going through the motions, trying to outwork the memory, the sound, like physical labor could patch whatever hole I'd torn open. For about a week, nothing happened. No knocks, no movement. Even the dogs started relaxing again. I almost convinced myself it was done, that I'd imagined the whole thing in the echo chamber of my own silence. But then one night, I was sitting out on the porch, just rocking slow, letting the cold wind cut through me, when I heard the bell above the door ring once, not loud, just enough to notice. The problem is, that bell didn't have a clapper anymore. I'd taken it out, thrown it down by the creek, and watched it sink. I didn't move, just listened. Nothing followed, no knocks, no wind, just stillness, so thick it felt like something was pressing on the house from the outside. I slept in the kitchen that night, lights on, rifle across my lap. The next morning I found the front door ajar, not wide, just enough to say it had been opened. There were marks on the floor, faint smudges like something wet had been dragged in and out. The dogs didn't bark. They stayed hidden under the shed all day. I tried not to think too hard about it. Boarded the door, changed the locks. Told myself it could have been raccoons. The mind does that. It grabs whatever excuse is easiest to carry. But now it's been over a month, and I still wake up at 3:11 every night. Doesn't matter when I fall asleep. My body just knows. Some nights it's quiet. Others, I think I hear things shifting under the house, pipes twitching, wood flexing too slow. And once, just once, I thought I heard the knock again. Not from the porch, not from the silo, from the cabinet beneath the sink. I didn't check. I just waited. Sat still in the dark until morning. Thanks for tuning in to 7:31 a.m. tonight. If you're new here, like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next signal.